Good morning, guys. Today in this tutorial, bright and early, what we're going to create is a little launch pad blueprint for our character to walk over, and when the character walks over it, it's going to send him flying up in the sky. So you can use that to reach areas that you wouldn't otherwise be able to reach. It's a cool thing to put on like weird platforms out in the middle of nowhere to help the player reach massive gaps and things like that. It's just a little like object to put in the world to mix things up and to change the way that the game feels and plays and the strategies that you can use to get through the world. So it's super simple. Just in your content browser, go new folder, and we'll just call this Launchpad. Open that up, right click, new blueprint class, actor, and we'll just call this Launchpad BP. Alright, open that up. I don't know why I'm up so early this morning. I woke up at like 10 to 3. This is 10 to 4, sorry, not 10 to 3. It's bloody ridiculous. I'm never up this early. And I don't feel too tired either, which is weird. So if you go in Add Component and go Static Mesh, we can just leave that called Static Mesh for now. Go over to the type over here, make it a cube. On the scale, change the Z to maybe 0.1 so that it's like a little pad looking thing. You can lock that back and then compile and save. We'll change the materials and stuff later. Let's just set up the actual launching. So add another component and call this box collision. Leave that called box. Now for the scale, I think this guy is 100 across. I'm going to guess that he's 100 by 100. So if we change the size of this to maybe 50 by 50. Yeah, 50 by 50. Yeah, box extent should be 50 because it'd be 50 in the positive direction and 50 in the negative direction. So that's 100. And then you can change the width of this to, I don't know, maybe like 20, something like that. That looks pretty good to me. So whenever our player overlaps that volume, they're going to get sent flying up by this pad thing. Alright, go to the event graph, delete all of that, click on box, right click, and then say begin overlap. And we want the add-on component begin overlap, and then off of other actor type in not third person, let's just say cast to character. So cast to character will affect, which means this node off of this, the execution pin off of this, will run for anything that is a child of the character class. So that includes our third person character. It'll also include any other AI or enemies that we create using the character template. So this pad will affect the AI as well, which would be cool. It'll make for some weird gameplay. So once you've got the character, drag off of as character and say launch character, like that. And launch velocity, it's always going to be upwards. So what we might do is we could just split this like that, and then just grab the Z and promote that to a variable, and just call this launch Z, like that, and then just make that public. Now that should be it, I believe. So let's just test that works, and then we'll add some sounds and materials and stuff to pretty it up. So we can just put that down there like that. It doesn't really matter where for now. I'll show you how you might go about using this later. And then we hit play. Just ignore all that other stuff that's going on. So there's our pad. Nothing happened. Alright, I'm going to delete some of this other stuff in the world because this is too freaking complicated. There's stuff absolutely everywhere. Actually, I'll just delete that. That's fine. Okay, so it didn't launch. Let's have another look at this. So, on component begin overlap, let's see if the cast failed, so we can go off of that and say print string and say hello. Oh, you know what could have happened? Our launch velocity could have just been set to 0. That'll probably be it. So let's default that to 500. We can probably delete this because I'm pretty confident that was the problem. Okay, control save. Control S to save. Boom. See that? That wasn't me jumping, that was the pad. Up like that. Beautiful. So now if I click on this now, and because we made that variable public, we can change it down here. So let's make that a bit bigger, so I can prove to you that I wasn't lying and I wasn't actually jumping. Now you ready? Boom. Check that out. Okay. We made those in the last tutorial, by the way. Have a look at that if you want to make them. Okay, so let's pretty this thing up a little bit. Let's add a sound on the end. So we'll say spawn sound at location. And I mean, you can use whatever you want. I think we had a cute little laser sound in here somewhere. Yeah. There's a link to that in one of the previous videos in this series. I can't remember which one it is. Probably the one where I made that shooting proximity turret. So maybe have a look at that if you want the sound. The location, we're just going to say get actor location. It can be any sound you want, by the way. This is just because I want to show you how to add a few effects just to give some feedback to the player. We'll change the pitch multiplier to a bit lower so that it sounds a bit like thicker. So we got a sound. We won't worry about a particle system. We'll just stick with the sound for now. So now it'll make a sound when you walk over the pad. Cool. I like that. Now let's just add some material to it to make it look a bit cooler. So we'll go into content browser, right click, type new material, just call this launch pad M. And this is just going to be super simple. I'm just going to make it like a little emissive thing that will just flash. So hold 3 and left click for a 3 vector, right click, convert that to a parameter, call that color, hold M and left click for a multiply, hook the top node thing into the A of the multiply, and then hook that into emissive color like that. And now off of the multiply, well, just hold 1 and left click for a constant, hook that up to B, convert the constant to a parameter, and call that intensity like that. And the intensity is the one that we're going to be changing over time. So we could probably just close that right now. Tick yes to save. My computer doesn't do too well with materials when I'm recording, so I just like to close that down so we don't lag. Now in the construction script, grab your static mesh and drag that in, and then drag off of that and say create dynamic material instance, and then hook that up like that. Source material is going to be our new launchpad M, that one there, and then off of there we're going to say set vector parameter value, and we're also going to drag off and say set scalar parameter value like that. Now the vector parameter value, let's promote that to a variable, the value down here, and we're going to call this color like that, and in parameter name type in color because that was what we called the parameter back in the material. Now for scalar over here, type in intensity for the name, and that was the parameter of our constant, and then multiply that, promote that to a variable as well and call that intensity down here. Okay, so you can say compile and save that. Let's just move this out like this for a second, and off of return value for the material instance, drag that out and call this material ref, just like that, just so we've got a reference to that node that we can use later. Okay, so now that that's set up and we go back in here, we've got our launchpad, it's black now. If we go down here to color and then we change this color to say red and then compile, nothing happens, and it's probably because the intensity is 0. So if we change that to like 5, boom, there we go, we got a lit pad thing. So that's kind of cool as it is, but what we could do is we could also make it flash, which would make it look a bit more enticing to the player. So if we go into the event graph and type in begin play like that, drag off and say, actually don't do that, add a custom event down here like this. Oops, I cannot type. Custom event, and we're going to call that start flashing. We're going to make the material flash. So to do that, off of begin play, type in start flashing so that we start flashing once we begin play, and then off of here we're going to say timeline, and we're going to call this flashing timeline like that. Now there are a couple of ways that we could do this. Let's use a sign function. So to do that, double click in here, set this to loop, add a float track, call this maybe, yeah, we'll just go 0 to 1. Just call that 0 to 1. Literally all we're going to do in here is set this length to 1 second, right click, add key. First frame is 0 and 0, and then second frame is 1 and 1, just like that. And we're going to use that to drive a lerp node. So what we can do off of here is we'll grab the intensity of our thingamabob, our material. We'll also grab the material reference like that, and we're going to say set scalar parameter value, and the value that we're going to be setting is the intensity again, just like we did in the construction script. But this time, instead of just setting it to a single value, we're going to have it cycle through a bunch of different values. So this down here will be a lerp like that. Actually, no, that's not quite right. What we want to do is we want to grab this 0 to 1 value, and we might multiply that by a float, and that float can be 360 like that. So now we've got, instead of 0 to 1 from that, we've got 0 to 360 coming out of this. And then what we can do is if we take the sine degrees, I believe that should return a value between -1 and 1. So if we get rid of that lerp node, and then we've got our value of -1 and 1 here, we can go multiply by float like that, and then hook that up to intensity like that, and then we hook that up into there. So what this will do, it'll cycle from -1 to 1. It's a bit of a roundabout way of doing it, but I think this will work. And that's going to then be multiplied by the intensity. So we might even get negative intensities. Maybe I messed that up. I probably did. Oh well, it's early. Give me a break. Okay, look, it kind of works. Yeah, that works fine, you know. Another way that we could do it, which I think I might just do because I don't like this way. Let's just go back into here and drag this one into the center like that. Actually, we'll set it manually. So we'll go 0.5 and 1 like that. And then down here add another key, and we'll call this one time 0 and value, time 1 and value of 0. So now what we'll do is we'll have the intensity go up and then down like that, and we might just right click and go change the interpolation so that we can make this a bit round like that. So just so it looks a bit smoother, and we can do the same for the one down there. Okay, so now what we've got is we've got a value from 0 to 1 like that. Drag off of this and let's say lerp, and we're going to lerp between maybe an intensity of 1 and an intensity of, say, I don't know, 10 like that. And this is going to be hooked up to the alpha, and then that curve is going to be 0 down there, 10 up there, 0 down there like that. That's much neater than the last one. Okay, compile and save. Look at that, beautiful. One more thing that we can do is, if we wanted to, you could grab the flashing timeline down there, and you could go up here and say set play rate, like that, hit begin play, and then you can set the rate down here to a new variable. This can be called flash rate, just like that. And oopsie daisies, what the hell? We could make that public, and we can make the color public as well. And the flash rate will just default that to 1 like that. But then, so if we were in here like this and we hit simulate, that's going to look exactly the same as it did before, flashing little material. But now we could duplicate this guy, add a couple more like this, and we could change the colors to whatever we wanted. That one could be green, this one could be blue, like that, and they could all flash at different speeds. So that could flash at 2, this one could flash at 3 times, and then hit simulate. Yeah, check that out. We got all kinds of different looking jump pad thingamabobs. What you could even do is you could make them a random color every time you put one down. This is just me going on a tangent, by the way, guys. Feel free to stop at any time. That's the end of the tutorial. You've got a fully functioning jump pad, but if you want to make it look cool, even cooler than it already is, here's another thing that you could do. Is in your construction script up here, the very first thing that we'll do before we'll set up the material like that. So we might just collapse this like that and say set up material. What we could do before we set up the material is let's set our color like this. Hook that up into there. But what we're going to set the color to is we might say get copy like that, and we'll drag off of this and say make array. And then so what I'm doing here, I'll explain what I'm doing before I get into it. We're going to have an array of different potential colors, and then we're going to set up some logic down here that'll select a random color, set that to this color, and then it'll set up the material. So whenever you put down a launch pad, it'll just be a random color, so they'll look really pretty. You don't have to do this. You could have them all the same color if you wanted to, but this is just a cool thing that I just felt like doing. So we're going to say get, not get, what is it, length, I think we want? Yeah, length. No, not length, we want last index. Last index. And the reason we want the last index is because say we've got like, I don't know, 3 entries, this will return a value of 3. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say random integer in range. We want to get a random integer in range. The minimum is 0 and the maximum is the last index. So we're getting a random element from here. And then we hook that up into the get like that. Okay, and now we can add in our colors. So maybe we can have one that's red. Maybe we can have one that's blue. We can have one that's green. And then we can have one that is pretty pink. Just like that. Okay. And there you go. They're all random. And if you move it, it'll change to a random color each time. Just like that. So now you got pretty randomized jump pads. It's like a freaking disco. Oh, we could make them change colors as they flash as well. No, look, that's pretty cool as it is. If you wanted, you could also randomize the play rate as well. So if we went in here like this, and we change flash rate to instead flash rate mean, as in like the middle kind of, we could then say times by float, multiply that by 0.5. And then what we could do is we could get the mean and say add float like that, and we'll what's the best way to organize this? Probably like this. So we could add half of the mean to itself. So go hang on, let me think about what I'm doing here. What if we put a minus float down there like that? So we've got the mean minus add half of itself, and we've got the mean minus half of itself down there like that. And then over here in rate, we can say get random. We can say random float in range is the one we want, and we'll get a random float with the minimum as half of the mean, and the maximum as 1.5. Blah, that hurt my head. Okay. But anyway, this will slightly randomize the play rate for each one. So if we hit play, they're all flashing at random speeds now, I think. No, because they've all got different means. So if we just delete all of these for a sec. Now this one has a mean of 1. So now these won't all flash at the same rate, but they'll all flash with a mean of 0.1, a mean of 1, sorry. So they're all slightly different, but similar at the same time. Anyway, this turned into more of a bloody material and flashing tutorial than a launch pad, but whatever, the launch pad works. So how you'd use this in your levels, let me just delete all of these. So let's say you wanted to get over this wall, for example. Like maybe we had some more level over here like this. You could have this launch pad down here like that. The velocity will set to 1,500. We hit play. Play comes over here like that. Boom, up and over the wall to the next level. You could also have like a really big gap. So if we got rid of that wall entirely and we had this massive gap like that, much too far for the player to jump just regularly, you could come into it like this. Still too far, but you get the point. So what we also could do is you could have like in like an activate and deactivate function. So maybe you need to like hit a switch to activate the launch pad so that you can actually make the gap. So maybe there's like a pickup on the other side of the level or something. The way that you do that is, instead of having start flashing up here, you'd need like a you could go custom event down here, and this could be called activate pad, like that. And instead of having start flashing and set play rate, we could set the play rate up there, that's fine. But instead of having it start flashing on begin play, you could only have it start flashing once it's activated, like that. And also down here, when we launch the character, so we can collapse all of this bit here, and this can be called launch with effects, because you could put your particle system and any other effects that you want inside of that. Change the input here to character to launch is what we'll call that. And when you begin overlap and we cast a character, before we actually launch the character, we could do a check here. We could say branch, and this could be called is active, activate, question mark, whatever. Don't make that public, not yet. So if this is set to true, it'll actually launch the character. If it's not going to do anything. And once we hit activate pad, we're going to set this to true, like that. Now on begin play, collapse this to a node, and we'll call that setup, just like that. And then if we double click that, we'll need to hook that up to the output so we can continue the logic. We could have a branch up here, just like that. And this one can be called starts active is what we'll call that one, and we'll make that one public. So if that's ticked, which by default it will be, and is active will be false. So if we want it to start active, then what we'll do is we'll drag in is active, and we'll set that to true. Actually, no, we won't do that. All we'll do is we'll just say activate pad. Easy. Activate pad, just like that. Okay, so if I just walk you through everything that we just did and explain it. When the game begins, the pad starts inactive. So what it'll look like is it'll just be... What we could also do actually while it's inactive is we could just have the color as neutral. So this here, set up material and etc. like that. Let's collapse this to a function, and we'll call this set random color, like that. And let's just delete that for now. So by default, the color is just going to be black, like that. So it's going to be inactive, and we're going to set up the material just like that. So if we go compile and save, that's what it looks like. And if we go into the game, that's what it looks like. And if I walk over it, nothing should happen because it's inactive. So now, when we activate the pad down here, before it starts flashing, what we're going to do is we're going to say set random color, just there like that. So that should set up the color. It'll start flashing with that color, and we'll set is active to true down there like that. So is active starts false. It's set to true once we activate it. So now when we begin overlap, it'll launch us, and this timeline will also start when we activate the pad. So as you can see right now, it's not active because start active is set to true. Hang on. Oh yeah, no, that's fine. So if I hit simulate, nope, didn't work. Why is that? Starts active, set to true. Hang on, is that the wrong variable? Huh. Let me just check that. It says hello. Okay, so it's activating. Set random color. So we're setting our material to a random color. Perhaps it's because we might need to refresh the instance. Yeah, I think that's why. So if we go set random color like that, you'll need to grab in your material ref like this, and you'll just need to say set vector parameter value, like that. The parameter that we're setting is called color, and the value that we're setting it to is that color there. Okay, fingers crossed. So now it's not like that because we haven't hit begin play, but once we hit simulate, beautiful. Now it's flashing and it's active. So if we go into the game like this, it's a random color, hit it, and now she works. Beautiful. And I made it across that time. Maybe I moved it in, I can't remember. So now, yeah, these ones are activated. They activate on begin play. But if you didn't want them to activate on begin play, you could just tick these little things like that, and now they'll just be little black boxes on the map and they won't work. Just like that. And if you wanted to activate them, then what you could do is you could have like a little pickup in your level somewhere, like I don't know, like maybe we could just go a sphere trigger like this, and we'll put this over here like that, make it a bit bigger, and let's just, can I make it so we can see it? Actor hidden in game, yeah. So we'll uncheck actor hidden in game so we can see it, and then in your level blueprint what you do is you'd say begin overlap, add on actor begin overlap with your trigger sphere selected. So yeah, you must have it selected, and then you can go in here and put it in here, and then for other actor type in third person character, and then what you want to do is you want to select one of these. So let's say we want to activate this one, right click in here, get a reference to that, and then you can drag off here and you can just say activate pad, just like that. So now whenever you overlap that volume, it's going to activate this pad, and then after that we're going to say destroy actor, and we're just going to destroy the trigger volume. So that's this one over here, like that. Alright, compile save. So that's the level blueprint. Now if I drop in here like this, this is inactive, and if I walk over this, boom, activated. So you could obviously set that to be like a switch or a pickup or something, but this is the same principle, and now that's fully functional. Alright guys, I'm going to leave this one there. Let me know if you have any questions about that. Oh, I better leave that. Let's just leave all this how it is. Let me know if you have any questions, or if there's a request that you've got, or something that you think would be cool to add to this little series that we've got going, and I'll see if I can knock something up. Yeah, that's it. Let me know if there's any questions, and I'll see you in the next one.